Okay, this is a talk to bring you up to speed with our latest chronological research. And one of the most ironic of our understandings is that we've realised that because in Numbers 14 it says a day for a year I'm giving you, repeated. And literally it meant a day for a year. On the 40 days of spying and a 40-year penalty in the wilderness. In the greater meaning, there are two substitutions, a day for a year, a day for a year. And they stand for two greater substitutions. One, a day of Laodicean spying for a month, and that penalty is 40 months from Sivan 1, 2012 to Elul 30, 2015. But the other one that's more fascinating to me is a day for a year on the Watchtower. Because Freddie Franz articulated, and we have this on our website, on page Understanding 360 and on Understanding 271AQ, we have his speech made in 1975 where he said that they expected Satan's lease to end and the world to end on the last day of Elul 1975, which they believe incorrectly is Elul 29 because they use the modern Hebrew calendar, but the Bible uses the old Biblical Lunar Calendar, which has 30 days in every month, so it's Elul 30. But anyway, that was the last piece of chronological research they did. When that failed, they gave up, and then they came under a 40-year penalty, because presumably either they set up a committee of 12 people, two of whom said, yeah, we don't know how to fix this, but God will give us the fix if we just keep trying, and the other 10 said, we want to go home, thank you very much. We vote to give up on Bible study. We're the international Bible students who don't want to do Bible study that involves chronology. Or it was actually 12 members of the governing body. And Joshua would have been Freddie Franz, who then went on to become, in 1977, the president, as the leader of God's people, as did Joshua back in the days of Moses. And Caleb would have presumably have been Ray Franz, because Freddie was a believer that you could know the date of the end. Dan Sidlick told me that, and well, we've heard him say it in the talk. Speaking to the Jehovah's Witnesses directly, you couldn't really ever have expected to get into the kingdom without a 40-year, or at least 40-time, wilderness penalty. And the good news I have for you all today is that that penalty is up on the true at the end of Elul 30, or the beginning of Tishri 1. You know, there must be this wonderful vote in the governing body. Shall we do Bible study? And 2 said, well, no. Oh, yes, sorry. And the other 10 said, well, no. Not if it involves dates. And then there was this terrible doctrine that some spin doctor articulated. Oh, we don't speculate about dates, future, and the stream of time. What a ridiculous thing to say. You might as well not speculate about what the Bible might mean. I mean, it's just an insult to call Bible interpretation, sincere Bible interpretation, speculation. There's always an element of speculation. You're trying your best with the Bible and you may be wrong. But it's absolutely the job of a Bible student to put forward every possible meaning, and which you can, if you want, insult him by calling him some kind of a speculator. And then having put forward the meaning, that's brainstorming, you then analyse them and throw out the ones that don't fit. But anyway, the vote was to stop doing that form of research, and to be honest, I don't really see much evidence that they were doing any other form of research. It became a sales outfit, and 40-year wilderness penalty. But the good news is that penalty is about to expire. And it expires on Tishri 1. And, well, at the end of Elul 30, the first nanosecond of Tishri 1. And it should be judicial. It's a judicial penalty, so it should be accurate to the date. So we are expecting on Tishri 1, which is the Feast of Trumpets, and alarm and shouting, we are expecting an alarming thing to occur in the form of the second fire sign of 1 Kings 18, this nuclear terrorist attack. And Jericho has the 7th month of the 7th year, going around 7 times in the 7th campaign day. That would be Tishri 2015. Because Jesus' first regnal, first heavenly regnal was 2009, Nisan 1 it began. So the 7th month of the 7th regnal year of Jesus over the kingdom is Tishri 1. and that's the Festival of Trumpets. And in Jericho you take 7 trumpets, which you can either say are for the new moon festivals from Nisan 1 to Tishri 1 2015, or you can say therefore Tishri 1 to Tishri 7, because there's going to be another fire sign. There's the third of 1 Kings 18, we think, on Tishri 6. We've gone for Tishri 5 to Tishri 7 in the case of the third fire sign, and we've gone for Elul 30 to Tishri 2 in the case of the second fire sign, because you never know with time zones and inclusive and exclusive counts and everything. But we do expect that the 2 shouts of Jericho will occur on Tishri 1 2015, that being after the trumpets blown, and when they hear the blast of the trumpet shout. And then the other one would be on Tishri 6 2015, which is the late Zoar Pentecost, which I'll explain in a minute. And that would be the Jubilee horn, because a Jubilee is a 50 count and a Pentecost is a 50 count, it's the same pattern. So those are our dates. So we've got a new Zoar Pentecost, and it's very beautiful. So originally, the end of the temple ratio prophecy puts the first people in the temple of God, the true church, getting non-Adamic bodies, in fact Isaiah half-aging bodies, on 2012-15, which is half as much again after Jesus was born to the period from when Adam was born to when Jesus was born, because the temple, the ratio of the most holy, the length of the most holy to the length of the holy was 2 to 1, and Jesus was the curtain between the two, his flesh. So his flesh turns up 2/3 of the way through Adam. So Adam is finished. Adam began obviously when he was born. He's finished. Half the distance from Adam to Jesus after Jesus. And you work that out. Adam was actually born 4027 Tishri 2. Jesus was born 2 BC, Heshvan 21. Half of that again takes you to Sivan 15 or 16, 2012. So First Fruits Day, so basically there was a Passover of Adam. We died to Adam, those in the true church, which we submit with the Lord's witnesses. We died to Adam on Sivan 14 and were resurrected as Isaac, non-Adamic, on Sivan 16. I mean, we didn't actually die, we were gene zapped, but the whole process took 3 days inclusively. So we didn't die physically, and that was first fruits for Zoar. However, you can't actually appoint a church or somebody to run a church or an outfit, an administration to run a church during a jubilee, and 2012 Sivan is the first jubilee of the kingdom, because it's the 50th month, whole month of the kingdom, starting from the year 1 2008, which is the first whole month of the kingdom. So therefore we thought erroneously, with the previous attempt at these dates, that we'd just go to the first Sabbath in Tammuz, and then take the first fruits as the day after that, which was a bit unusual, and I did actually say that in the previous speech. I think it was edited out. But never mind. The correct thing to do with hindsight is what you always do, which is you go to the late version of the festival you've missed, i.e. the same day the next month. So it would be Tammuz 16. So we thought, great, we'll have first fruits there. First fruits must have been Tammuz 16. Problem is, Tammuz 16 is also a Sabbath. It's a weekly Sabbath. So now we have to go to Tammuz 17. Because although you can have a first fruits festival on a Sabbath, you cannot have an appointment on a Sabbath. And because the first fruits festival where we got the Isaiah flesh was indeed in a Jubilee, which is a Sabbath. But you cannot appoint on a Sabbath. So the appointment for Zoar was Tammuz 17. And now it gets very beautiful, because Tammuz 17 is the beginning of 3 weeks of Hebrew mourning till Tisha B'Av, which is the 9th of Ab, when they say the temple was burnt by Nebuchadnezzar and by Titus. In fact, it wasn't. It was burnt on Ab the 10th, according to Jeremiah and 2 Kings 1, and it was burnt, according to Josephus, on Ab the 10th by Titus. The Zerubbabel's temple was. So the correct date's Ab 10. Also, when you count from Tammuz 17 to Ab 9, it's not 21 days, it's 22 days. If you've got 30 days in Elul, which you should have. But they have 29 days in Elul, therefore you do end up on Ab 9. But nonetheless, they are, even today, God's prophets. They always were, they still are today. And they do 3 weeks of mourning. Now you look at Daniel chapter 10, where Daniel had been mourning for 3 weeks. And when we put this together, we thought, duh, it's the same it's not the same 3 weeks, but it's the same mourning for the same reason. The Jews mourn because they lost their temples. The constant feature in Solomon's temple ended on 586 Tammuz 17, and the constant feature in Titus's temple, Zerubbabel's temple, ended on 70 Tammuz 17. And Moses shattered the tablets also on 1513 Tammuz 17 BC. Incidentally, the Hebrew calendar, they rigged it, they knocked 150 years out of it in order to make Jesus not fulfill Daniel 9. I mean, it's ridiculous. It has the Nebuchadnezzar sacking Jerusalem in 423 BC, which is absurd. Secular history has that right, it's 586. So that's why they say that we're year 5,800 and something. We're not, we're year 6,000. In fact, we're year 6,000 and we're about, well, from a sacred standpoint, we're in year 6007. We're in the 7th. Am I right? The 6,000th year ended 2008 Nisan. That's right. So we're in the 8th sacred year of the kingdom, which is the 7th sacred year, regnal year of Jesus, and we're just about to end the 7th secular year of the kingdom and begin the 8th secular year of the kingdom, which is the 7th secular year of Jesus. And so we are talking about fire signs on the first day of the 7th month of the 7th secular year of Jesus, and on the 7th day of the 7th month, well actually on the 6th day, but the attendant shouting and saying, oh look, there's the fire, there's the rising cloud from the sea, on the 7th, because we expect it at the end of the 6th. And in fact, likewise, probably at the end of Tishri 1. So the attendant in 1 Kings 18:44 can say, oh look, there's a rising cloud like a man's palm from the sea, on a 7th, which would be Tishri 2, the weekly Sabbath, in the case of the Tishri 1 second fire sign, and will be Tishri 7, the 7th of day of the 7th month of the 7th secular year under Jesus of the 7th millennium. You can't get more 7th than that. This is what we thought would all happen last year, but we mistakenly went for the 7th year of the kingdom rather than the 7th year of Jesus, because Satan gets the first 6 months of the kingdom, just as Jesus had the first 6 months of the world before he did the deal to sell it to Satan, in order that he could get the firstborn angelic rights, so he could fix the heavens as well as the earth. So that's logically why Zoar First Fruits is Tammuz 17, the day that these tablets were shattered by Moses and the constant feature ended. So the Jews mourn the loss of their form of worship. And Daniel, who is the one NC reserves in chapter 10 in the greater meaning, is mourning his loss of his form of worship, which is Watchtower meetings, Watchtower field service, Watchtower magazines, and all the stuff that the Watchtower fills up Jehovah's Witnesses' lives with, so that they don't realise or have time to contemplate the fact that no one's doing any research anymore. Just as armies, when they have no war to fight, tell the soldiers to march around the square, dig trenches and fill them in again, so the Watchtower, classic control freak manoeuvre, because they're not doing any research, they're not fighting the war, they've given up as a result of their 10 spies. They fill up their lives with alternatives so that they don't have time to say, hold on a minute, where's all the research? They're too busy doing what they believe incorrectly that God wants them to do. They're actually doing what man wants them to do. And that's the deep thing of Satan, isn't it? Idolatry of your priest, or worshipping Baal, your leader, your master. You don't worship your master, you worship God. You honour your master, but you obey him as long as he doesn't contradict God, but you worship God. That's the thing the Watchtower have got wrong, and pretty much everybody else. So once you get that, you see that he mourns from the fire sign onwards, because that's when he realises his form of worship is finished. And so that makes Daniel 10 easier to understand, and for our latest understanding, it's understanding 163 on truebiblecode.com. So then you count your 50 days from this first fruits of Zoar, Tammuz 17, and you get to Elul 6. But then the fire sign is at the late Zoar Pentecost, which is Tishri 6. And so there's the third fire sign of 1 Kings 18, which is the second fire sign is Tishri 1. So and together those two fire signs are the composite second fire sign of 2 Kings 1, which has a fire sign has fire eating up the 50 and the chief of the 50. So the Tishri 1 fire sign eats up the 50, being between the Zoar Pentecost on 2015 Elul 6 and the late Zoar Pentecost on 2015 Tishri 6, and the chief of the, so that the third fire sign of 1 Kings 18, which is which eats up the chief, which is the second part of the second fire sign of 2 Kings 1, eats up the chief of that Pentecost, which is 2015 Tishri 6. And it sort of works with Haggai, and it is, I've said this to the Lord's witnesses in an email, but every time we get a new date, a new understanding of late, it's been more beautiful, and the pieces have fitted better than they ever have before. And I say to everybody, oh my God, it's never fitted this well. Now we see the full glory and beauty of God's chronology encoded in this book. We've seen it all, this is it. And then every time I've been wrong. And we thought, it cannot get any more beautiful than this. It cannot fit any better than this. And guess what? We sell God short on every occasion. But this one is the best of them all. Here's some other nice things we've worked out. So it says in Revelation 3 to the Council of Philadelphia, which is this church, I will keep you from the angel of that church, who's the head of it. I'll keep you from the hour of the test. And we hadn't understood the precision of that scripture. Jesus does not say, I will keep you from the test, which would mean, he protects you whilst the test was ongoing. He said, I'll keep you from the hour of the test. In other words, you won't be there at the time of the test. And we now know that the test begins when the mark of the beast comes in on 616 day, which is the 16th day of the 6th month of the secular year, starting 2015 Tishri 1, which is the acceptable year of Isaiah, which is the Sabbath year when everybody gets inheritance by lot, and which is the epiphaneic and illustrious and great and wonderful day of Jehovah of Joel 2 and Acts 2, when there's all these pillars and fire, pillars of smoke and fire and signs and dreams and visions. And the 16th day of the 6th month of that year is Adar 16 this year. And we're all in the ark, the saints by Adar 10, who are going in the ark, and the priests by Adar 13, and everybody else by Adar 16. So the way he keeps us from the hour of the test is he puts us in the ark prior to the test commencing. So we're not kept from the test, we're kept from the hour of the test. We're not even here for the test, which lasts 195 days. So here's the whole deal, guys. If you're interested in God, and if you are a Christian who has faith and wants to be part of a true church, then you've got to join this outfit, or find another one that you think is the true church, in the next 5 months before we all go into the ark. If you fail that test and you don't get into the true church in time to board the ark, then you come in for a second test, which is an entirely different test. The test on the people who go into the ark is a righteousness test and a faith test. It's the old-fashioned religious test that everybody understands. And, to pass that, you've got to obey the correct rules of the church, which aren't too onerous when you know what they are. You've only got to do it for 5 months. But if you don't do that, or you're so put off religion, which most people are, that you wouldn't even consider joining a church, even if it looked pretty much like it was true, then you have a totally different test, which isn't about righteousness, it's about love. So, from a particularly incorrect standpoint, you could be a raving homosexual, you could be a paedophile, you could be a mass murderer, you could be a total bank fraudster, you could be anything you like. But if your brother's in trouble and you help him out, I was hungry and you fed me, I was, sick and in prison and you visited me. That is the test. It's love. It's not righteousness. So if you miss the ark is faith and it's righteousness. After that, there's 195-day test, which is it runs from Adar 16 to the end of the acceptable year, which is Elul 30, 2016, the last day you can get into the first Abrahamic covenant and be saved. That test is, do you love your brother? Enough probably to break the law, because the law will be, he hasn't got the mark of the beast, you can't go near him, he's a horrible terrorist, don't feed him, don't touch him, and report him to the authorities immediately. Something like, some garbage like that. It's just satanic control freakery. But if you show that actually he's your brother, he's a human, and if he needs food, you're going to give it to him, regardless of personal consequences on you. If you show that to God, if you seek to save your soul, you'll lose it. But if you lose it, you'll gain it. And if you use it to help others, you won't lose it, or you'll gain it if you do. So basically, that's the hour of the test. And we now at last have a chronology where we understand how the true church is kept from that hour of the test. Those who join it with a water baptism, or at least who join it before the test comes in.